we are here on Real Estate in the Lowcountry. Taran Lynch from Goosehead Insurance has joined me. Nice to see you, Taran.
Hi, so
thank
good
you for
to see
being
you.
here. I've interviewed you on another show, but
Yes.
this is your first time on Real Estate, so thank you for being here today. Welcome.
Of course, yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. So last time, Will Topping was here, and he started talking about the anatomy of a homeowner's policy. We talked about Schedule A, and so today you're going to keep that going, and we're going to keep going down the alphabet with B and C. So let's jump in.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we're going to do the anatomy of the homeowners, and coverage A, as Will probably mentioned, is the largest number that you're going to see in your homeowner's policy.
Right.
And then the coverages below are actually percentages of coverage A. So first I want to talk about coverage B, which is other structures. And this is anything not attached to the house. So here in Hilton Head, there's a lot of pools, hot tubs. So all that would be covered under coverage B, detached garages, fencing, sheds. But one fun fact that people don't always realize is driveways are also part of coverage B.
Really?
So it's always good to have a small percentage on your homeowner's policy for those other structures, because if a tree lands on your driveway, you want to make sure that that's covered as well.
Right. Well, I think it's really interesting because you hear other structures, and my mind immediately goes to like the backyard shed. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, that's. But I didn't realize that it was pools, fences, detached garages obviously makes sense, but now obviously you just said driveways too. So it's a really much broader category than I think most people would think.
Yeah, and hardscapes around the yard too, so like any sort of like patios or anything like that. So we always like to keep at least 1 or 2% if they don't have much, but obviously if they have a pool and substantial other structures, will bump that up.
Yeah.
And just to kind of go into that too, going down the list, as you said, coverage C is your personal property. This is really dependent on the person, right? So when we talk to a client, we're going to make sure we ask certain questions about their personal property. One of the major components of personal property is going to be appliances, clothing, TVs. Basically, if you were going to shake your house out, that's what you're getting covered for.
Okay.
But this is dependent on the person and their value of personal property. One thing to note too with personal property is there's sublimits. So there's sublimits on jewelry, fine arts, guns, and furs, and that would need like a scheduled rider policy. Right. So good to know.
That is very good to know. Meg has mentioned that in previous shows, but I think it's a really good reminder because in your mind, or in most people's minds, I think, oh, well, that's my personal property. Right. It's inside my house. But really, those are an entity all on their own.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about the personal property that you are covering, because I know that some policies, I don't know if this is true for all, but like each year, like it kind of like accounts for inflation or different things, but sometimes that number can get out of whack and be way too high. So that's something we need to look at every year, I think.
Yeah. So the typical percentage is going to be 50%, but in some of these dwellings, the dwelling coverage, it might be $1 million. You probably don't need that much personal property. So talking with an agent on the phone, we can go into the carrier and say, okay, how does 30% sound, and kind of map that out with the client. Because you're right, every year the renewal comes out, the dwelling's going to bump up, the personal property's going to bump up, because everything, again, remember, is a percentage of the dwelling.
Right.
So yeah, going in and kind of adjusting things like personal property and other structures, and really find out the client's appetite for risk and how much stuff they have, because I'm not in your house.
Exactly. And it's interesting because when you think about those things, it's what would I absolutely have to replace? What is it that I can't live without that's my personal property? So I want that replacement value. But like you said, it's probably not going to be 50% of what the dwelling is.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing to note is people ask about like appliances, because often you'll move in and the fridge or stove will be there. So if they can be unplugged and take on a moving truck, you should account for those, and that should be something that you're covered with as well.
Interesting.
So something
Another
to
thing
know.
I didn't know.
Always learning. Insurance is great.
You know what, actually though, doing all these interviews, I think people think, oh, insurance is a little bit of a dry topic.
Yeah.
But I've actually learned so much during these segments. That's probably the segments I've learned the most in. So if somebody is looking to either maybe get different insurance, or they're a first-time buyer and they need homeowners insurance, how do they get to you guys to figure all of this out?
Yeah,
with the experts.
Of course, and we have a great team here, and we're all very vibrant and ready to make it not a boring topic.
Yeah.
You can, I have an email, website, Goosehead Insurance Coastal Solutions. My email is taran.lynch@goosehead.com. But yeah, best way, call the office, call our cells. We're happy to help.
Thank you so much, Taran,
You're
for
welcome.
being here today. Again, it was fascinating.
Yes.
I appreciate it.